Marriage, as we know it, is often a beautiful illusion crafted from fear, the socially sanctioned promise to make love stay. And yet, love, like water, slips through clenched fists. We swear before priests and judges that we will feel the same way forever, that we will keep our hearts fixed like the stars. But the universe doesn't work like that, neither does the heart. We say, I love you, but then we must notarize it, stamp it, file it in legal documents. What was once wild and spontaneous becomes measured, certified, and sealed under watchful eyes. We have turned marriage into a contract, not a dance, a bond of ownership, rather than a celebration of freedom. Most people, when they say, I do, unconsciously mean, you're mine now. That is often where the trouble begins. For while some rare and beautiful unions do thrive in shared commitment, many falter when love becomes entangled with possession. You cannot bind another soul and expect it to remain free, and love above all needs space to breathe if it is to sing. Falling in love is divine madness. It is irrational, uncontrollable, and glorious. You don't rise into love, you fall. There is something fundamentally risky about it, something sacred. Because to love is to surrender, to give up control. To fall is to say, here I am, do what you will with me. Sensible people don't fall in love. They calculate, they measure, they protect. But the moment you fall in love, you are no longer in control. That is why it is mad. And in that madness, there is a higher sanity. Now, here's where the real trouble begins. We try to capture the mystery of love and lock it in a legal cage. We go before judges and priests, and in the name of God, the state, and sometimes even the police, we swear to feel a certain way forever. Can you imagine? We take something as wild and unpredictable as falling in love, and we try to make it permanent, binding, respectable. It's as if love isn't real unless it's signed, sealed, and witnessed by vicars and attorneys. And so this lightning bolt from the sky, this mad surrender of the soul, is converted into a contractual obligation, a legal performance. You're no longer dancing, you're following choreography. And so the sacred becomes rehearsed. Spontaneity gives way to strategy. You keep little lists of things to remember, the right words, the right gestures, the right timing. You are now managing love. You are working at it. And the more you work at it, the less it is there. Love, which was once a leap of faith, has now become a performance under contract. And in that effort to keep it, to secure it, we strangle it. It retreats quietly, respectfully behind the curtains of duty and obligation. Marriages don't always fail with drama. Most collapse quietly under the weight of our attempt to control what was never meant to be controlled. The real tragedy is not that love disappears, it's that we pretend it hasn't. We convince ourselves that if we just act loving enough, if we go through the motions, the feeling will catch up. But that is not how the heart works. We send flowers, we write notes, we plan dinners, but not from desire, from duty. We become performers on a stage we did not realize we had stepped onto. And the audience is not our beloved, but our own fear. Fear of failure, fear of change, fear of being alone. You cannot force love to behave. The more you grip it, the more it slips away. It is like holding a flame in your hand. The tighter your fist, the faster it dies. We don't talk about this much because we're afraid, because we were told that true love means permanence, that if it changes, it was never real. You see, most of us were raised to believe that real love means forever. But who said that? Where did we get this idea that if it doesn't last until death, it wasn't true? What whispered that myth into our ears so convincingly that we never stopped to question it? This is the root of so much suffering. Because the moment we believe love must be permanent to be valid, we begin to fight change. And yet, look at the universe, nothing stays the same. Galaxies spin, stars collapse, even mountains erode. The only thing that doesn't change is plastic. And we dare to think love should? When we let go of the belief that love equals forever, something incredible happens. We stop clutching. We stop demanding. Love stops being a jail and starts becoming what it always was meant to be, a freedom, a presence, a moment of shared wonder that asks for nothing but honesty. You know you're in love, not because you've made a promise, but because you feel joy in their presence. You feel the urge to protect what you love, to nurture it. You feel pain when it suffers, peace when it's near. And most of all, love reveals itself in the giving, in the watching, in the simple act of being with. But then fear creeps in, the fear of losing. And so we try to bind it, control it, freeze it in place. We confuse our need for certainty with love itself. And in doing so, we kill the very thing we meant to protect. But this simply isn't true. Love changes. It breathes. It pulses. It has its own seasons. And pretending that it doesn't is what slowly kills it. Honesty, not effort, is the lifeblood of connection. Better to say, this is how I feel now, than to pretend you still feel how you once did. To love someone truly is not to promise eternal passion. It is to promise presence. And presence only exists in truth. People work very hard to keep a marriage together. And as they do so, they may fail to recognize that they are being untrue to their own emotions. They say, I must control my feelings for the sake of the children, for the sake of society. And so they work and work. And one of the ways of working is to convince yourself that you are still in love. You go through the motions. You hypnotize yourself with loving language. You remember to buy the flowers. You keep a diary for anniversaries because forgetting would be unacceptable. You do the things you're supposed to do, and you think, this is what love must be. The performance goes on, but the presence has left the stage. And what once was alive, spontaneous, and mad and beautiful has become respectable and dead. That, you see, is the tragedy. Not that love disappears, but that we pretend it hasn't. Not that we change, but that we lie about it. And in doing so, we trade the real for the role. And that, my friends, is how most marriages quietly wither not from conflict, but from pretense. You see, love is not something you can work on like a job. It is a flame. And if you try to pin it down, it dies. You cannot force a feeling to remain by obligation. And yet, this is precisely what so many marriages are built, upon a quiet, desperate pretending. And I speak not from theory, but from bitter experience. You build yourself into a wall-to-wall emotional trap, and in the background, something in you knows it's not real. You feel it, like a ghost. The true feeling, the spontaneous magic, it's gone, but the performance must go on. This is why the mystery dies. Not because love is gone, but because truth is. The honesty that once connected two people has been replaced by performance. And so the marriage continues respectable on the outside, but quietly crumbling within. You see, to love someone truly is not to chain them to a past feeling. It is to stand present with them every day and to say honestly, this is where I am now, and to let them do the same. That is the only kind of love worth having, the kind that breathes, the kind that changes, the kind that is free. Now let's look clearly at what people mean when they say, my husband or my wife. You see, behind that little possessive pronoun is a very old and very dangerous illusion that love means ownership. It doesn't. You do not own another human being. You do not own their soul, their body, or their attention. And the moment you try to, the whole thing begins to rot. We think that by securing someone legally, ceremonially, and socially, we somehow keep the love in place. But love, by its very nature, is free. It arises when you're not looking. It dances only when the music is real. The more you try to pin it down, the more it slips away. To say, I love you, should never mean, now you belong to me. It should mean, I choose to dance with you now, and I'll choose again tomorrow if the music still moves us. But instead, we shackle it. We say, you may not change. You must continue to be who I need you to be. And when the other inevitably begins to shift us, all things must we feel betrayed. Not because they were dishonest, but because we expected permanence in a world that only offers movement. The truth is, you don't need someone to be yours. You need them to be themselves. And if they choose to share that with you, then you are blessed. But if you demand it, expect it, or require it, you have already lost it. Love is not a cage. It's not a certificate. It's not a role in a play. It is simply the freedom to see another as they are and to let them be. We must begin to imagine a different kind of relationship. One not based on obligation, but on presence. Not on permanence, but on participation. You see, love isn't something you can force to last forever by swearing to it. The moment you make it a duty, you've robbed it of its essence. Real love, like real music, happens in the moment. It is not a means to an end, it is the point itself. Now, suppose two people say to each other, let us agree not to trap one another. Let us be honest, rather than loyal to a performance. That, you see, could be the beginning of something true. Instead of saying, I will always love you, say, I will be true to how I feel. And I will respect how you feel, even when it changes, because it will change. Everything does. A marriage, if it is to be anything sacred, must be a daily meeting of two people who allow each other to be. Not a prison of promises, but a shared space of mutual freedom. And the irony, of course, is that only in freedom can love truly thrive. Only when you stop trying to hold someone do they come willingly. Only when you let go does anything real begin. Let marriage, then, be not a trap of fixed roles, but a place where two individuals meet in truth, again and again, where change is not feared, but welcome, where love is not performed, but allowed. And when it fades, as all forms do, we do not blame it for ending. We simply acknowledge that it lived, and that is enough. You see, many of us grew up with this picture of what love and marriage should look like: forever smiles, unchanging vows, and happily ever after. But real life isn't like that. People change. Feelings shift. Circumstances evolve. And that doesn't mean something went wrong. It just means life is alive. If you've ever sat next to someone you once loved and felt the silence between you grow heavier over time, you'll understand. If you've ever tried to force the connection to stay the same when it's already moved on, you'll understand. And if you've ever looked in the mirror and felt that you're not the same person who said, I do, years ago, then you already know the truth. Love isn't supposed to be perfect, it's supposed to be real. And real love, like all living things, needs room to breathe, to stumble, to transform. It doesn't always last in the way we imagined, but that doesn't mean it failed. Sometimes love ends, and sometimes it begins again in a new way with someone else, or even within yourself. So if you're in love, be present, be honest, don't chain it down with fear. And if you're letting go, do it with grace. Thank the love that brought you here, and know this: you are not broken. You are growing. Let love be what it truly is. A gift freely given, not a contract enforced. Let it be sacred not because it lasted forever, but because it was real while it lasted. And if you must promise anything, promise to never stop telling the truth even when it's hard, especially then.